tourism.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. It's a beautiful, not so busy traffic in Montego Bay. Yesterday was interesting. But here we are, and it's another great opportunity for us to take part in something that is very meaningful and that will augur well for our young people and for our nation. My name is Brian Brown. It's indeed my pleasure to welcome you to this year's edition of the National Tourism Debate Competition here at the Montego Bay Convention Center. We have some exciting news, and of course, the fact that we are now doing this not just virtually, but in person again, after a few years, is indeed something to celebrate. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of some of our distinguished guests. The Executive Director of the Tourism Enhancement Fund, Dr. Kerry Wallace, Mrs. Nadine Spence, JHTA Montego Bay Area Chair, Mr. Oral Heaven, President of the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Of course, this is about the students, so we want to big up our students that are here and the ones that are on their way, and wish them safe journey here. Of course, we'd like to acknowledge the presence of the Public Broadcasting Corporation of Jamaica, the PBCJ, the Gleaner, the Western Mirror, and the Observer, and of course, our other distinguished guests. Welcome all. At this time, before we go into anything else, I'd like to invite you to stand for the playing of the national anthem. It's not coincidental that we are having this event in the month that we are celebrating our national heroes, as we honor those amongst us who have provided distinguished service to our country. And this actual event started 12 years ago, right here in Montego Bay, and it's always been the hope for it to attract at least 16 schools from all over this country in spirited debate about the issues of the day, the topics that are burning, and of course, future proofing whatever it is that we're going to be discussing and what we're preparing for as a nation. Specifically, it focuses on tourism, as the name suggests, but also we'd like to acknowledge that in every situation, every crisis, there is an opportunity. And the opportunity that presented itself during the pandemic was to invite a larger community through technology. So the diaspora got a lot more involved, and the benefits from that venturing, that diversion into that space, more focus on that, allowed for a bigger platform, which will all go well for the competition in the future. This year, the focus will be on airing 2 points of view on the #1 industry. We have 11 schools competing across 16 matches for chances for several prizes. And this year, we have a 3rd prize being added to the fold. So it's gold, silver, and bronze. And with that in mind, it is the right time for me to acknowledge the sponsors without whom this would not be possible. Of course, our ever-present gracious hosts, the Montego Bay Convention Center, Jamaica's premier convention facility. Give them a big round of applause, please. They always come up for us. Sponsors who are providing various forms of prizes include CGM Gallagher, the Tourism Enhancement Fund, Parcel Post, the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association, Chukka Caribbean, Origin Juices, Tony Ward Transportation, Camco Manufacturing and Hotel Supplies, Pier 1 Restaurant and Bar, Margaritaville Group, Attelligent Limited, Starbucks Jamaica, Royalton Resorts, the Jamaica Observer, Fontana Pharmacy, Moon Palace Jamaica, Iberostar Resorts, and PBCJ Jamaica. Give them a big round of applause, please. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in addition to the human service and support provided by our sponsors, no event of this magnitude can start, much less persist, without a driver. And it is my distinct opportunity right now to give you an overview and history of this event, the Executive Director of the National Tourism Debate Competition, Ms. Michelle Tolo. Give her a big round of applause.
Thank you, Sir Brian. Oh, no. Our Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Brian Brown. Thanks, Brian. I'd like to recognize the presence of the Executive Director for the Tourism Enhancement Fund, Dr. Kerry Wallace, our Regional Chapter Chair, Mrs. Nadine Spence, and President of the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Oral Heffen. Over the years, the National Tourism Debate has received accolades and major support from some loyal corporate entities, which Mr. Brown just announced. They've weathered the storm with us and in recent times held strong during a global pandemic. This year, we celebrate 13 years. A milestone which was not easy. Some of us that are here, that have been with us for 13 years, can remember the first or the second year we were robbed and lost all our files to the competition, and we held strong. 2020 to 2021, we faced a pandemic, but then we transitioned online. And transitioning online, we were able to invite Turks and Caicos, Cayman, Barbados, Bahamas. You have given of yourselves sponsors and judges. Many of you, like Mrs. Spence from the GHTF, sat in as a judge. So as Mr. Heaven and Dr. Kerry Wallace, I think we need to appoint him as chief judge next time around. As the executive director, it's my job to direct the moods and set the tone of the debate. I thought it fitting for us to concentrate on raising our arguments and not our voices. Let's talk it out and let's not fight it out. It's a concern to our entire country that many of our students are returning to school burdened with emotional problems carried over from trauma experienced in their lives, which find outlets in aggressive ways. I think we all have been watching the news and social media. Our young people need guidance in this and many other ways, not least of which is the need for critical thinking in career decisions. I'm sure of this, so much so that when we reached our benchmark of 16 schools Up to last night, I was telling our executive director that at 9:48 p.m., we were still getting registrations. I had to deny others this year. My first response to the team was, let's find a way to include everyone. So this year, we decided to schedule our 16th school knockout competition as a hybrid competition. So the preliminary rounds will be online, and then we go into face-to-face. This is usually held at the Iberia Star. The finals will conclude in our tourist capital in Montego Bay. But should the remaining 2 schools be in our nation's capital, then you know it's Kingston, logistically. So we'll come back to Dr. Wallace. This year we have a new edition of the Pier 1 restaurant, bar, and club. I know Cornell College is here, so you know Pier 1. They have come forward with a trophy for the top Western school. So you're gonna get your own trophy. I told Mr. Russell, don't make it bigger than ours though. During the preparation for the debate, our feedback showed that many parents were concerned about COVID-19 and the distance their children may have to travel. So some persons have asked, why have we done the preliminaries online? But that was the reason. A few months ago, COVID was still a concern. So 2023, we may be able to do all the preliminaries face-to-face. Let's hope this can happen. I know we have a few schools that's tuned in with us now. So I'm sure they have a few questions. I know one called this morning that wanted to make their way here from Mandeville. We want to encourage as much participation as possible from as many students as possible. Last year, many participants struggled for various reasons, including research preparation and Wi-Fi capabilities. While these are typical of the challenges they face in pursuit of higher education or career goals, we do what we can to minimize disadvantages. All in all, I take pride, as I'm sure we all do, in the success of the debate. It has grown to attract attention from around the region and have expanded participation to several Caribbean islands. This is a result of the commitment, effort of our small production team, like Darlon, who has been with us for a few years. And at the end of the day, here in Jamaica, we can be assured that 16 or more schools can participate each year. The students will now be better equipped to make critical career choices, and those that decide to pursue careers in tourism will set off on their journeys on a better footage. So this year we added bronze, and it's gold, silver, and bronze, 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause for Michelle Tolo. Proof positive that stick-to-itiveness and vision, there's no substitute for those things. And while it is, before I go any further, I have to acknowledge the presence of my alma mater. I know it's a bit biased, but I see them here. I see the epaulets. This is my school, CC. All right. No pressure, no pressure. So while it's debatable, the reasons for some of what happens in the world, in our world, Jamaica, what's undeniable is that programs like this platform for young Jamaicans to express, shine, grow, and glow is absolutely irrefutable evidence and proof positive of what is right with Jamaica. And these young people, through their diction, through their clarity of thought, analytical thinking, will form the nucleus of the better part of what Jamaica will become. So give it up for all the participants for stepping forward. We salute you. It's not easy at your age to step on a stage and express yourself. We get it. And so right now, ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, it is a distinct pleasure to invite a colleague and former high school schoolmate. She went to another school called the Montego Bay High School for Girls, to come to the podium right now to bring you greetings on behalf of the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association, the Montego Bay chapter, Mrs. Nadine Spence. Of course, it's you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Master of Ceremonies, my colleague. For a moment, I thought, former schoolmate, wait. But I understand what he means. He meant that we went through high school together. We knew each other from way back when. And it's funny that we're in tourism together. Hello, Mr. Master of Ceremony. To our Executive Director of the Tourism Enhancement Fund, Dr. Kerry Wallace, my President of the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Oral Heaven, Executive Director of the National Tourism Debate, Ms. Michelle Tuller, students, media, my fellow colleagues, distinguished guests, good morning. I bring you greetings from the Council and members of the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association. Congratulations to organizers of the National Tourism Debate competition for not just enduring the many challenges and excelling over a decade, and also striving to get to this position, but expanding the reach of the program beyond the shores of Jamaica and into the Caribbean. We applaud your sustained vision of sensitizing youth to opportunities offered and issues faced by tourism and greater understanding of the industry because, as we all know, tourism touches the lives of just about everyone in Jamaica, directly or indirectly. We know that at the core of competitive high school debate is the examination of every side of important, sometimes controversial issues in an atmosphere of reasoned argument and respectful discourse. This is a good thing, as it teaches students appreciation and respect for how others think and improves their ability to cooperate and resolve conflicts. And so, debating is an especially valuable tool in education. For all students, including at-risk youths. The benefits go well beyond that too, as research studies show that debating builds listening skills and confidence and contributes to discipline based on the long hours of research required to develop an argument. Clearly, debating is intellectually inspiring and promotes critical thinking. Studies also prove that debate students excel in written and oral communication, improves reading, and become self-directed learners, which allows them to take control of their education experience and continue to learn throughout their lives. We see this in the many former high school debaters who are at the helm of our private sector industries, corporations, and public sector bodies. They are leaders in school communities and various sectors of the society, including tourism, of course. The JHTA can attest to that. With all of these benefits, we all agree that this tourism debate competition is invaluable, not just to the tourism industry, but the nation as a whole. We look forward to the discourse this year and wish the various teams well. Again, I will be in the audience and I'll be cheering you on. Thank you, Michelle, for your continued dedication to not just the debate, but tourism and the business sector as a whole. You know the importance of what this can do to the children. So we thank you so much for your continued effort, and thank you to all the stakeholders involved and all our sponsors. We at the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association continue to endorse this event and give it our fullest support. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mrs. Spence. I wish I went to Moby High, as all Cornwallians do, to express for at least a semester, at least 1 or 2 days a week. Last we tried to get in after school, but that's another story. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I have the distinction of introducing someone who will be introducing someone else. And before I do, I would just like to speak briefly on some of the things that the qualities for the debates, for the debaters, as far as what they will be expected to be armed with in their arsenal of tools to present their most convincing arguments. Preparation, diction, confidence, the content, charisma, potency, logic, the facts, conviction, critical thinking, obviously, composure, and improvisation. Now imagine having an argument, a personal argument with a proficient debater. It may go something like, well, I put it to you, darling, and hitherto, furthermore, my not washing the dishes is proof positive of my climate change awareness and compassion. I don't know that will go well at all. But what I do know is that without the support of and the inspiration of persons who will be coming on stage now to do the introduction and who will be introduced, they'll see the composure, the diction, the mannerism, the way they carry themselves, how it matters, because a lot of the times it's not about what you know, but how you present yourself. You can always learn on the back end, but what people see and how they perceive you is very important. And we're really hopeful for these young people. So, I say that to say this. Allow me to introduce the person that will be introducing our keynote speaker, Ms. Khadijah Lauder.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. How are we doing? Good? Yeah? All right. Thank you all so much for coming out. It is my esteemed honor to be able to serve you today in this way. So, Dr. Kerry Wallace, I have quite the introduction for you. I hope you enjoy it. So today I have the distinguished honor of introducing our speaker, a man who bears many titles, a man who needs no introduction. However, formality would suggest, given the forum in which we meet today, it's warranted. So here goes. Most of us sitting in this room have benefited, whether it be directly or indirectly, from the brilliance that is Dr. Kerry Wallace. Dr. Wallace is an incredibly driven professional with passion, wealth of experience, and a track record of success. Serving as the Executive Director of the Tourism Enhancement Fund since March 1st, 2017, he is responsible for directing and managing the agency in fulfilling its mandate of promoting growth and development in the local tourism sector. Prior to joining TEF, Dr. Wallace was a senior consultant with T2 UK Limited, one of the world's leading providers of psycholinguistics, where he guided blue-chip clients to optimum operational and customer performance. In addition, he led T2's growth strategy through new product development and expansion into international markets. Dr. Wallace's experience in tourism spans some 23 years. He held the position of Chief Executive Officer of S. Manley Wallace & Sons for some 13 years, using his aptitude for business to expand the family enterprise from one hotel to a group of companies, including 3 hotels, a shopping mall, and a nightclub. Nightclub? Okay, that's dynamic. Prior to joining the family business, he was managing director of Mariners Resort, where he transformed the hotel from a bed and breakfast to a successful all-inclusive facility. Dr. Wallace holds a Doctor of Psychology in Social Psychology from Cardiff University in Wales, an MBA in Finance from Cornell University, New York, and a Bachelor's in Computer Science from our very own, my alma mater, the University of the West Indies, Mona. Additionally, he is a certified project management professional and is proficient in conversational German and Spanish. If you aren't impressed yet, let's get on board. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our speaker for today, Dr. Kerry Wallace.
Thank you so much for those kind words. After a while, you start wondering if it's the same person. But I am pleased to be here to speak to you, despite the bright light in my face, and address you at this momentous occasion of the launch of the tourism debate. You see, it's timely because we've had a few current situations in our schools. I'm sure a lot of you would have been privy to the stabbing at Kingston Technical and other fights that we're seeing on social media and so on. And so if you don't mind, I'll seek your permission to kind of give two short speeches. One, wearing the hat as TEF's executive director. But since I have a PhD in social psychology, I wanted to share some points on wearing the hat of a psychologist afterwards, so I hope you don't mind. So let me first salute my friend and master of ceremonies, Brian Brown. Always a pleasure watching him perform, whether as an MC or in a band. It's so multi-talented, you know. And I'm sitting there and I'm just looking at you Montegonians and thinking, boy, you guys have talent everywhere. We, you know, from the event last week, we saw it shining through. A few of you were there when we had the launch of the expo. And speaking of Michelle Tulloch, for instance, and just how her dynamism has led to the resilience of the national debate, the tourism debate, having gone through COVID and still kept going. And then the growth of it, from going from a Western tournament to a national one, and now we're regional, we're in other Caribbean countries. So let's give her a round of applause, please. And I'm sure she is not alone. It's because she has a great team of collaborators with her here in the tourism capital of Montego Bay. Mrs. Nadine Spence, era chapter of the JHTA, another dynamo. Thanks, and a lot of what you said I echo as well. So that will cut down the TEF side of my speech, so I can focus on the psychology side. President Oral Heaven, you know, I heard Brian boasting about the Cornwall, you know, the connection and so on. Brad, you know, Oral went to Manning's, and I went to Manning's. You've probably heard of Manning's. They're only beating up every school now in football, right? Leading the group, got to the semifinals last year. Well, I can't say too much because he has a mic after me. We know Cornwall's D-Cup record is a whole lot better than ours. Still, we're getting there. Fellow sponsors, so crucial. I mean, TEF is proud to have come on board as a title sponsor, but it speaks a lot louder when there are multiple sponsors, multiple stakeholders who are part of it. It's a message not just to the organizers, it's a very strong message to the children, knowing that the community surrounds and collaborates and comes together to provide programs for their development. So thanks to all the other sponsors as well. Now, on the TEF side, we want to say that, yes, we have sponsored, I put it in quotations, to the tune of $3.5 million for this program because we believe in the development of our young Jamaicans, especially our bright young Jamaicans, and to guide them towards the number one industry in Jamaica, which is tourism. If you think about it, there's a bit of a gap and a disconnect. And there's a saying that you never waste a good pandemic. So having gone through COVID and had a reset of tourism, we have an opportunity to rethink, to bridge all those gaps that we found there before. And one of the gaps in terms of human resource that we have is that tourism is our number one industry in Jamaica, has the fastest growth. Tourism has grown, in the last 3 decades, tourism has grown 30 times the national growth. So whereas the rest of the country, the whole country, is growing at this rate, tourism grew 30 times Jamaica's tourism. And the potential for growth is still there, right? As I drove in from Kingston, I passed new plants, new hotels being constructed. And the demand for new investments are just as strong as it was before the pandemic. So I say it's the number one industry, and I speak about the disconnect with the human resource, because if you think about it, let's take Guyana as an example. Guyana just found reservoirs of oil, huge reservoirs of oil. And as a Caribbean brother or sister, we would kind of want the best for them. So we would really like to see them quickly channel their brightest minds into chemical engineering or, areas where they can ride on that benefit of the oil reservoirs that they have there. Whether it's the top jobs in the refineries, whether it's in supplying the pipes or whatever, all that's needed for the refineries and all the oil production to happen, you would want that natural asset to be converted into wealth for the people of that nation. In Jamaica, our natural asset is our tourism assets. It's our beaches, our rivers, our waterfalls, our valleys, our mountains. It's our diversity, it's our gastronomy, it's our cultural assets as well too. But it makes us in the top 10 in the world as far as brand and reputation and how sought after we are as an industry. No wonder we're growing 30 times the national average, because it's like having great diamonds here, our natural assets that people want. So they travel thousands of miles. They're traveling more to Jamaica. Jamaica has the highest repeat rate in the entire Caribbean. 42% of the visitors come back a second time. So are we aligning our human resources with the number one industry that has the greatest potential for growth? And if you think about it, let's pull Cornwall again and say, okay, the top 10 brightest boys in Cornwall. Here we have the number one industry in Jamaica, that will provide the jobs, the opportunities. And if I say to you, what's the chance of us going to Cornwall and say, pick out the top 10? And is it the case that all the teachers, all the parents are saying, listen, go into tourism because tourism is number one industry? Odds are they're not. They're saying to turn a doctor or turn a lawyer or turn an engineer or turn things, actuary, things that, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying the alignment to tourism is not there. So much so that when we now need those bright adults to take the top positions, to have loads of responsibility, to run a 2,000-room hotel, to be the exec chef that has the knowledge of cuisine and chemistry and all these things, to food and beverage management with cost control and complexities. We find that we have to sign work permits to allow foreigners to come in. It's a travesty. And those are the jobs where they have the Audis and BMWs and nice houses in the hills. And yet our Jamaicans know that our educational systems steer into other channels. They then graduate and they look to going abroad to then have a semblance of that lifestyle. We have the positions here, but they're not steered into those channels. So we then have to import. So there's a disconnect. Hence, we're here pumping support into things like this, the national tourism debate, so that the conversation can begin at the high school level. Because I know, and I heard you, Nadine, I agree, to debate, to be on this program, you have to be cream of the crop. Right, students? You have to be bright, you have to be quick on your feet, as Brian described. You have to be eloquent, you have to be charming. You said charming to Brian? I was like, okay, a lot of pressure. You have to be able to think on your feet, critical thinking. And so if we can get you in doing the research to be prepared, understand tourism a bit more. Because the perception of the general local citizen, is that once you think tourism, you start thinking servitude. You start thinking waiter and bartender and groundsman, and you think of the lower positions. Do you know that we had to even give work permits for vets to come into Jamaica for tourism? Vets, veterinarians, for the dolphins. Because they're fish animals and so on, mammals, well, dolphins are mammals, that are here, that are part of the tourism product that require those services to support. Engineering, construction, manufacturing, agro-processing, so many areas that are not necessarily inside the hotels, but we need the human resource, we need the talent to be there to make us thrive. In fact, the logistic chain challenges that we've been having since COVID has made a lot of persons stand up and think that, hey, yes, it was easy before to bring things in from China and so on. Now that has become more expensive and that has become a challenge, you start look within to say, but why couldn't we have it produced here, or at least have a substitute here, a local substitute? And then you start thinking creatively, can we make that local substitute actually better than the original? Whether it's from a health and wellness standpoint, more nutritious, or whether it's from a cost-effective standpoint, or whether it's from a quality standpoint, or whether it's from a branding standpoint. The branding is an advantage that we have as Jamaica that many other countries don't have. Because Jamaica is such a strong brand, thanks to our athletes, thanks to our musicians, thanks to our students, Jody and Maxwell, thanks to our film, our actors, our creatives. When I went to University in New York, I was amazed at the association with Cool Runnings, the movie. because coming from Jamaica, you know, we go there, yeah, Bob Marley, yes, okay, fine. I went there before Usain Bolt's stardom. But when they said, oh, Jamaica, cool runnings, like, okay, all right. But when you watch a movie, I mean, it was a very popular one, and it's a feel-good underdog, you know, rose to the top kind of thing. So we have a very, very powerful brand. And the brand means people like to associate with that brand. People like to associate with success. People like to associate with David rather than Goliath. The underdog that came from behind and won. Everybody loves that heartwarming story. And Jamaica is one. What we say? We say we're little but we Talawa. Always punching above our weight class. So, bringing that knowledge of tourism, that association with tourism, that consideration of tourism is something that we are hoping will emanate from this national tourism debate as it expands and grows and reaches into more and more schools. Speaking of schools, we have started a program for the past 3 years called the Hospitality and Tourism Management Program in high schools, where we provide an associate degree in hospitality and tourism management. We started out as a pilot, and we're in our second cohort right now. So that provides an opportunity for those who graduate to enter the tourism industry seamlessly, because they would have had an associate degree and as such a certain level of skills that would make it an easy transition into tourism. We also have the Jamaica Center of Tourism Innovation's certification programs, where the cohort of Jamaicans that are now working in tourism, we ensure that they have the certifications that formalize their skill sets. It makes them now, in a globally competing tourism space, be able to be there on par with any international person. So what used to happen is that the multinational hotels would come in and they would have, 100 hotels across the world, Mexico, Dom Rep, Mediterranean, and they build one in Jamaica. And they stay in their central head office and they say, okay, this is our formula, we're just going to kind of stamp our formula at each hotel in each country. So when it comes on to our hiring, we're going to give our HR manager the sheet, and every executive chef has to have this, that. Every sous chef has to have this, that. Every housekeeping supervisor, and so on. Now, those qualifications are international qualifications that they have to have. So when we have our own Jamaicans who were in the business for 20 years and they can cook like there is no tomorrow, best tasting meals them put out, and they understand cost control, and they basically can do the job. But when they go for that interview, we say, where's your paper? Where's your certificate? Your international certificate. They says, what that? I don't have that. And they get bypassed, and the hotel say, boy, we can't find the right people in Jamaica, and they apply for work permits, get the work permit, boom, a foreigner comes into that position. So we set up the Jamaica Center of Tourism Innovation. That's a department in the Tourism Enhancement Fund. And we said, you know what, we're going to fix that. So we partnered with those international accreditation bodies, the American Culinary Federation, the American Hotel and Lodging Education Institute. We partnered with our local training institutes as well, HEART, here in Jamaica. And we created programs that trained and certified those Jamaicans already in the system, so that they then have the actual paper, the certification that get them the top jobs in the hotels here. So those are the aggressive programs that we've taken on to correct that gap, to get all our tourism human resource needs to be filled with our own amazing Jamaicans. And I say amazing because when we do our market research and exit interviews and so on, it turns out that it is the Jamaicans that they like the most about this country. Yes, we have nice beaches and we have waterfalls, but when we do that exit interview and we ask the question, what is the number one thing you liked about your holiday? They say the people. And when they are returning 9 out of 10 times, it's because they have friends, they feel that they love that feeling of you recognizing them, of you speaking to them in person. For those of you who've traveled or live in a first world country, you understand how lonely it can be. You may be amongst others, So you're walking on the street and you're bumping into people and thousands of people passing you on the sidewalk, but not one of them is making eye contact. In a subway, barely can stand up on one toe, hitch up, everybody touching you. Nobody makes eye contact. There was a story about somebody, a police officer whose specialty was investigating suicides. So after each suicide, his job was to go into the person's house and look for suicide notes and, just kind of do an assessment. And he said, of course, over the years, he's read many notes and so on. And he said there was one that touched him. There was one note that, when it was written, it was in San Francisco. So most persons, the San Francisco Bridge is very popular for people jumping off. He said the note said that the person said, if on the way to the bridge, if even one person says hello, I will turn back. And obviously he didn't turn back because nobody, not even one other human being said hello. Which in Jamaica, blows our mind. That's nonsense. We can't even walk past a person in the hallway and they don't at least give you a nod and maybe it's a small island thing. We train that boy, if we don't know the person going to know somebody who knows, probably your mother or father, so you better be nice to them or you might get a beating when they go home as children. Well, at least in my days, that's how you were kind of brought up. But it comes natural to us as a people to wish others the best, to want to talk to others, to bust a joke, to get persons to laugh. We are not satisfied unless after the interaction with any person, they feel better afterwards. And so I was at a function on Saturday night, and the guest speaker was Adam Stewart. And of course, he has multiple hotels in different Caribbean islands. And that's 90% of his speech was just talking about how amazing Jamaicans are. So much so that when he's opening new hotels, he opened one in Curacao just this year. And out of 1,000 persons there, he brought 250 Jamaicans from here to go there to ensure the culture was set at that hotel in Curacao. So we have an amazing people. We have an amazing country. We are the third largest English-speaking country in the Americas. How many of you knew that? It's USA 1, Canada 2, Jamaica is third in terms of population. Guyana is bigger in terms of landmass, but in terms of population, Jamaica is the third. So really, it's not surprising why we do so well in tourism. despite our crime rate. Because remember, crime and tourism don't mix up. Would any of you pack your bags with your wife or husband and say, okay, I'm going to go on a holiday to a place that I hear them shooting people like birds? No, that's the furthest, you can go as furthest from there as possible, as far as there as possible. But still, so it's almost like having a vehicle that has a massive engine and very fast, but we're driving with the handbrake up. So we're still progressing, still moving forward, but man, what if we only let down this handbrake? There won't be any stopping us as a country. So speaking of that antisocial behavior, I wanted to then speak a little about social psychology. And one of the ways that I believe you can help this situation, you, the decent Jamaicans, the well-thinking Jamaicans, the Jamaicans that have a bit more resources, a bit more support, is I'm going to ask you to recognize the influence that you have over others around you. It's what they call social influence. You see, because one of the things that is influential in human behavior, very, very influential, is conforming to social norms. Conforming to social norms, meaning what you think everybody else is doing and what is expected of you, you're very, very likely to do that. So basically, the clothes you wear, nobody came here in a bathing suit because they are conforming to the norm that when you come to a function like this, you wear a certain attire, you wear a certain dress. If you didn't care what anybody else thought of you, you wouldn't need mirrors in your house. The fact that you look in the mirror is that you are looking at yourself as others are going to see you. And we do it a lot more than we realize. We think we make these behavioral decisions all the time based on logic and reason and so on, but a lot of the times we're just making these decisions based on what we think we are supposed to be doing, what we think others are expecting us to do. And it presents an opportunity. You ever been on a dance floor and don't know the moves? You're watching out of the corner, you're watching everybody else, and you're busy trying to catch the moves and conform to what everybody else is doing. If the Cornwall guys, the students, if you came out this morning and you were in plain clothes and everybody else in uniform, how would you feel? You'd be tempted to think, boy, I wonder if I can go home and change. Or you quickly want to get back to where you are not standing out. If you think about punishment in this world, punishment to humans, the maximum security prison, how do they punish those prisoners if they misbehave in prison? Solitary confinement. They lock them away from others. You see, we are hardwired as a species to want to belong to a group, to be heard like. When we're in a group, we have our strength. When we are in a group, we feel better. When the group respects us, likes us, we are a lot more comfortable. And so it means that if we give others the impression that the norm is crime and violence and bad manism and gangs and thuggery and so on, then when an individual is assessing to know what to conform to, they'll conform to that norm that you presented to them. Can we change the norm to present something else? People would say to me, but Doc, these things are happening. You have to talk about them. You have to highlight them and so on. But are they the norm? Out of all the students in all schools in Jamaica, how many stab another person? You would have to agree it's a minority. Not every day the majority of the students are stabbing each other. No, they are the minority. But the way it's highlighted, social media everywhere, every veranda in Jamaica, every talk show, you get it inundates the whole country, and you get the impression that is the norm. There is a theory called the broken windows theory, where when you create impressions that the place and the area is clean and classy, that the people end up conforming to the behaviors that match those. So some years ago when New York was rife with crime and so on, they had that program where they clean the streets and they clean the graffiti and they fix all the broken windows and so on, so that visually all the cues were that it's a decent place. And you guys know the difference. If you've ever walked in a street that had pure garbage, or walked in a street that had well-manicured verges and not a spot of rubbish anywhere, that's well clean and well presented, you know the automatic impression that's formed in your mind about that area that you're walking in. Would you drop a bottle there? Probably not, because everything just look clean and so on. You get the impression that everybody on the street may ensure that they bin their bottles properly. Whereas when you go on the street that is bottles everywhere, you are more inclined to litter there. In fact, the research has showed that in psychology, where if you want to get persons to stop littering, you are better off showing images of clean verges and well-manicured lawns and so on, than showing pictures of the litter itself. Because a lot of this is unconscious, you know. Yes, we are good people and we mean well and so on, but the unconscious cues hitting us create an impression, and we have behaviors that the best we can explain is, boy, I just felt like doing that. I didn't feel like going there, I felt like going this way, all because the unconscious cues have come at you. So I'm saying all of this to say, listen, you can have that positive influence on our country because you have a circle of influence. There are people in this room observing you. There are people, when you go out on the street, observing you. There are people at your home observing you. There are people right throughout. So you're just influencing others because others are looking at you, trying to assess what's the social norm and conforming to that norm. You influence people now on social media, what you post, the comments you make. And now that reach is almost everyone because of the technology providing that access. So we in this room alone can start a movement of projecting a social norm in Jamaica of peace, of harmony, of collaboration, of cooperation, of growth, of success, of morals, of class. We can just decide to start projecting that. You see how strange it almost sounded just repeating those positive words of where we want to go with Jamaica? Because so many of the words associated with Jamaica are not the positive words. And it's not that we're bad people, it's that we are conditioned to believe that paying attention to what's wrong is how we fix it. But it's funny, it's when we give energy to what's right, we lead the herd, we lead the people in the direction of those social norms that we present. So, less talk about what's wrong, more talk about what's going right. Many students now excelling, all our national debaters here, well-dressed, well-groomed, here ready to debate tourism, positive. Let's highlight them. That's why I drove from Kingston this morning here to talk to you and them and to drive back. The sacrifice to say, listen, I'm coming here to the ones to make this a social norm, not going to the school where you had the fight or the problem. I'm going to highlight it, talk about it, share it, encourage it. Those are the things that we can do so that it becomes cool to be smart. It becomes cool to be proactive, cool to be pro-social, cool to help others if you are strong, not to beat them up. You show your strength, show your toughness, your resilience by building. As we approach Heroes Day in October, you think about the challenges our heroes overcame. Most of them, it was the atrocities of slavery, and they rebelled against it. So their role was fighting, was being a warrior. Now that we're our own sovereign nation, a democracy, governed by our own people, the champions that we need in this society are no longer the warriors. The champions we need are the builders, because we have a nation to build. We're a developing country. You see, this building, took architects, took electricians, took carpenters, took masons, took tilers, took carpet flooring experts, took ceiling experts, took so many persons to coordinate and collaborate, and so much money to build. How many persons will it take to destroy this building? One person with some gas and matches, right? So tearing down and mashing up is no great feat. That don't show strength. Building, collaborating shows strength. How do you collaborate? You have to have trust. When you say you're going to hold this end of the log, I can trust you because I'm going to hold the other end of the log, knowing that you're a man of your word. It takes fairness. It takes equity. It takes an understanding that you achieve more when you collaborate than when you operate as an individual, the every man for themselves situation. You know that traffic flows more smoothly if everybody joins a line than if a few people come out and start cutting and clogging up the lanes. You know that if you are in a position of a public official, that you do your best you can. Be prudent with the public spend. Be transparent. Be efficient. Because you are relying on others to hold the other end of the log. So you build a nation with the people. There's no way you can build it if you are not trustworthy, if you are corrupting government or in your role. So a lot of persons don't even see the connection. And I think all of us can do that as the outstanding Jamaicans that we are. We know we are punching above our weight class, and we cheer them on when we see them on the on the track or on stage, and we're proud of them. But can each of us be that proud Jamaican, that in our own role, be the one with that circle of influence, creating that social norm around you, where it's professionalism that everybody sees and is exposed to, where it's national development, where it's respect, mutual respect. So that means, as you go about your day, your job is to exude that amazing first world Jamaican. From the way you greet the security guard at the school gate in the morning, that security guard is going to say, wait. Whereas he may have been having a bad thought, the way you greet him and say, morning, sir, or by his name. That small, slight influence. Whereas he may have been thinking of something negative and say, boy, well, at least at the school I get respected. There was an article in the paper several years ago by Mark Wignall. He had interviewed a gunman, and he had written an article based on that interview. And the story went like the fellow was out on his face, no employment, nothing, hungry, and was begging on the street, and him said the amount of disrespect that he got, and cuss off, and people call him stink and rush him away and all kind of things. Him say him went on one of the downtown and went into one of the stores, and the store owner rushed him off the balcony and diss him up bad, and and then some friend asked him to come with him for his introduction into crime, and he was just to stand outside and watch, and he got some money for it, and eventually he got a gun, and eventually he started robbing himself and holding up people and so on. Eventually started shooting and killing people. But he said the change in the way he was seen in the community. Him say, whereas before, him hated to see people because everybody dissing him. Him say all of a sudden him start getting all this respect. Anything him say, people run up and down. Him start get girls because them have money. Him start, people know him as Shatter. So people start bow as them come through the gate, them, yes, yeah. Before them come to him and ask him for favors or whatever the case may be. He say when he held up the same store owner, and the guy wet him pants, and him said the guy, stop calling him sir. The same guy that dissed him up in no uncertain ways before. And he said to Mark Wignall that he would rather die with the gun than go back to that existence of being treated like dirt. And the question is, do we need to treat our less fortunate like dirt? We're not saying he was right, I'm just saying, what does it take to treat people with respect? How much it costs? Zero. It don't cost some money to say something encouraging to somebody, to wish them well, to acknowledge them. But we have become a little fierce in Jamaica. Just driving traffic. Because I remember coming from the UK, and when you drive there, such a polite society that if you even just act like you want to cross the road, every car, and sometimes you don't even want to cross, but they thought you wanted to, so they stop and you just cross so that you don't make them feel bad. When you're trying to pull out, and They only want to see you look like you're going to pull out, and they stop. And then there's an automatic, if in slow traffic and two lines moving, it's just understood that you alternate. If this guy goes, then you go, then you go, then you go. Just smooth, efficient. When you get to a stoplight and it's amber, everybody stop. So can you imagine me now coming back home, driving in Kingston, and reach amber and I stop, and everybody behind me wondering if I'm mad. And then coming driving around me to still cut through the amber and the red. And until you adjust. Because I would stop, I would watch the other side coming, and I would watch their light go amber, and then I watch it go red, and it's still coming. And so by the time it's my time to go, now it's green, I can't go because it's blocked up. So I can choose to be polite and wait, and then when it's my time again, it's amber and red, so I wait. The guy behind me will kill me. So eventually you make a decision and you become fierce too. So you know I am one of those drivers too, that if a new person just coming from the UK watches, they're gonna put me in the group of being a fierce driver on the roads. So I say that so that you recognize that the norm may very well be that we have decent, principled, upstanding, professional Jamaicans. It's just that because of how fierce the society has become, we have all adjusted to that fierceness. We still think of ourselves as a good person that means well and wants the best for the country. But we don't recognize that that influence is then continuing the pattern of fierceness in our society. And it means the opportunity for change is nowhere else except the man in the mirror or the woman in the mirror. And we can start with our circle of influence. Now we have technology that we can just spend most of our time that what we post are the good things about Jamaica. Just continue, good things about Jamaica. Even if it's just the way somebody dresses, even if it's just the way somebody does their job, even just the way a taxi driver drives. You know who does it? Which profession? Lawyers. Lawyers refer to themselves as my learned brother and my esteemed colleague. And so they call each other that. And anybody on the outside looking in, just hear everybody calling each other of these esteemed, and it helps the whole profession to rise and be respected accordingly because they have demonstrated that respect amongst themselves. So we can do it too. But we've been conditioned too quick to tear down, to compete, and we have to get into that mindset of seeing the Jamaican in us first, seeing the outstanding individual in us first, recognizing that this island of 2.9 million people should not be difficult to make into first world. First world meaning we're earning the kind of income, we have the kind of employment, we have the state facilities, the roads, the hospitals, the police stations, the ambulances, the support for tuition, the support for healthcare, all those things that you have in first world countries where a lot of people from Jamaica go to for that experience. We can have it here in Jamaica. The income can be from tourism alone, much as other industries that are thriving. So I hope you feel my optimism and enthusiasm. I really believe that here in Montego Bay, you have a lot more collaboration than a lot of the other townships in Jamaica and cities in Jamaica. I've watched as a person from Negril now residing in Kingston, where your collaboration with your ministers, your MPs, your Chamber of Commerce, your GHTA, your NWAs, your NWCs, just a lot of collaboration, and no wonder you have been growing so well and growing so fast. In fact, what was that statistic the other day that came out that you were, I'm sure you know it, Oral, the Montego Bay was the fastest growing city? Yeah, it just makes perfect sense. And before I go down, I'll give you one more reason just to reinforce. Many of us see the atrocities the white race has done against non-whites. But if you focus on what the white race has done for the white race, meaning their in-group, we being their out-group, we Black Lives Matter, and we fight, and we know the oppression, and we know the slavery, we know all that history. But one of the things that we need to focus on as Jamaicans is what they did for themselves, the in-groups. Firstly, in the US, which was a British colony just like Jamaica, you knew that? When they gained their independence, because most of the whites, they were running from persecution, whether religious persecution or, in fact, in those days, Europe was mostly monarchical. So it was kings and queens and lords and dukes and a whole strata of society that if you were born a peasant, no matter how hardworking, how industrious you were, you wouldn't be able to climb up any of the stratas. And so when they created their constitution, when they became independent, they did away with all that. They said, listen, they're writing a constitution for the liberation, the freedom, for pursuit of happiness. No matter who you are on your own industry, we are going to help you to rise to the top. Mind you, they did it for the whites, meaning they were the majority of the population there in the US. The blacks were the minority, they were the smaller population. In fact, they are still called minorities today. On the islands, it was different. The whites in Jamaica and the islands were the minority. There were 6-1 from African descent in Jamaica versus from European descent. And so when our constitution was written, it wasn't like theirs to facilitate, to liberate, to empower, to uplift. And they became the #1 economy in the world in no time, even surpassing Britain, surpassing Spain, surpassing France, surpassing Ireland, all those places where they came from, because they created that opportunity and that support system and that collaborative nation-building ecosystem. I don't need to compete with you because there's so much to have if you and I work together and build. And Jamaica has that opportunity. We have the ingredients. It's just to bake that cake where there are more slices, there are slices for everybody. So, in fact, when the whites went to Australia, they went as prisoners, Do you know that? It was a prisoner, so you couldn't get more from the lowest strata of society. You take the ones out of the prisons and them you send to Australia. And again, because of that collaborative spirit and attitude and in-group collaboration, now look at them in Australia. And today we call it white privilege, because a white cop pulling over a white person is quite different than a black cop pulling over a black person or a white cop pulling over a black person. So the question becomes, can we create a Jamaican privilege, where once you're a Jamaican, the answer is always yes? The answer is always yes, come on in, open the door. Can we do that for our own brothers and sisters? Recognizing that in doing so, the tide will rise, and all boats rise when the tide rises. That's the kind of heroic collaboration that this country needs now. Not warriors, collaborators. Thank you.
Wow. You know, where do I begin? You know, I try to listen to a lot of different messages. I'm doing that more and more these days. And this event segued from being just a launch to being, no, I wouldn't call it a lecture. It was an experience, a learning experience. So I am grateful, therefore I'm great. The best use of your time is being present, and when something is being given to you, is to be present enough to appreciate what is being said in the moment. And a lot of what was just shared is a lot of information that you probably would have taken 8 or 10 years to put together in one sitting. So, my friend, Kerry, Dr. Wallace, big up yourself, sir. That was amazing. And I'm a student of history, you know. Loved Martin. Malcolm was my dude. But when you watch some of the things from history, you realize that you're living it right now. And I hope I'll be able to watch back what you just presented, because there's a lot in it that we can share with our colleagues and our youngsters that they would get from it. It was a history lesson, but more so it was something that was future trending and about how we can move forward. Big up yourself again, boss. So it is now time for us to continue our movement into recognizing our students and make some presentations. I am also very mindful that with a lot of what Dr. Wallace said, in our own spheres of influence, we have the opportunity to guide and to steer persons on the right path. So when I participate in a career day at Cornell or Moby High, and it's the lawyer, doctor, and the usual things, you know, I say to them, okay, but in doing that profession, you can also be an entrepreneur, and you can collaborate. You can own the medical center with a stream of different medical practitioners working for you. So don't just think about what you can do for yourself and striving to be in those positions. Your doctor could be a wellness entrepreneur, resort owner, you know, culinary exploits. There's so many things we can do. And so to segue into why we are here, the narrative that you speak, debaters, what you say repeatedly, the self-talk, and what you share outside of your competitions. It shouldn't be just a practice where you regurgitate and postulate for the purpose of winning, but hopefully this can transform your mindset into a mentality for life. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, it is now my great pleasure to invite a few persons to make some presentations. So to the stage, I'd like to invite to return after your brief exit, sir. So we're going to invite Dr. Wallace, and I'm also going to invite Michelle Tolo, the Executive Director of the National Tourism Debate, the Regional Communications Director for Royalton Resorts and Suites, Kerry Coelho Casserly, and Adrian Harrison, Sales Manager for Margaritaville Caribbean, to make some presentations.
Thank you, our Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Brian Brown. I also want to thank the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce. They have endorsed this competition now for quite some time, I think 4 or 5 years, and the Ministry of Education, and who am I forgetting? Sandals. Cristiano, who is new to us. He came on board as a sponsor last year. Was it last year, Sandals? So Sandals is now a sponsor for the regional part of the competition. Now, one of our judges are here, Tamika Bryce. Tamika, please stand. She will be one of our judges in the 2022 competition. And she is one of our attorneys here in Montego Bay, right, Tamika? So she came in a little late, but as you know, as a lawyer, you have court first. In 2010, when we started the debate, we started rough. In 2013, we tried to find a home for the national tourism debate, and so we moved to Iberia Star. At that time, Mrs. Kerry and Quayla Castley, by the way, Brian, and who else was saying it? Kerry and I went to school. We actually went to school. We both went to Meadowbrook High, and so this is a pleasure. So Kerry Ann started with us. We expanded. The Minister Bartlett at the time thought that we should go national because we were just Western. And so we decided to go on CBN TV, and Kerry and Quayla Castley came forward and helped us. She moved from that hotel, and on moving to Royalton Resorts, she took us with her. So she is one of our sponsors now for over 10 years. She gives us the prizes for the coaches, and she assists us with many other things. So Kerry and Quayla Castley, can you come forward? I'm going to give this to Dr. Kerry Wallace, the executive director. You're going to hand over, so we're going to ask you to come forward for the photo opportunity. Thank you both. Dr. Wallace, don't move. She's a very, very busy lady, but for the last 2 years when we transitioned online, we didn't have the funds to do the trophies and prizes like we wanted. And logistically, it's very difficult. For example, I believe we have Glenmore High, who has been traveling since this morning to get to Montego Bay. They had a flat tire. They are still en route to Montego Bay, but these are some of the problems we face when we do the competition. Sometimes a day will go and we cannot do the competition, and Kerry Ann will say, Michelle, is all right. Don't worry about it. Tomorrow, we set up back the room and we cook more food. So we thank you. We thank you, Kerry Ann. I'm going to ask Adrian Harrison of Margaritaville Group to come forward. Dr. Wallace, you can feel the funds in there. Margaritaville Group and I, we go way, way, way back. I don't want to tell you how old I am. Brian knows, but don't say a word. My first job in Montego Bay was at Margaritaville Group. And even though I exited Margaritaville Group, they were one of the first persons to come on board. Mr. Ian Dare, who is now chairman of the TPDCO, he has given us his best wishes this morning. But I remember I left. I was not Margaritaville anymore, and I called. I said, Mr. Dare, I want to do this little competition. And he said, yeah, man, no problem. Trophies, awards, everything. And since then until now, Margaritaville has grown with us. So thank you to you both. I have been wanting to give you these awards for a few years now, but Dr. Wallace made it possible, right? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
So it's the high school thing. You know, in Jamaica take this high school thing seriously. You know? So Adrian, and for those who don't know, as the sales marketing and entertainment manager at Coralcliff, which is part of the Margaritaville Caribbean Group. So by extension, we accepted that prize together. But he just like, Brian, Monroe, I'm going. I'm like, all right, fine. Another one of our beating sticks in the D-Cup days. But Monroe has improved, as well as Mannings. Right. So thank you again to our recipients for their continued support, putting their money and their support in tangible ways to make this event that much more appealing and prestigious. Regional Commercial Director for, that's our inside joke, Royalton Resorts and Suites, Kerry and Coelho Casserly. Adrian Harrison, Sales Manager at Margaretaville Caribbean Group. Come on, give it up for them one more time. And thank you, Dr. Wallace, for the presentations. And so now, ladies and gentlemen, we are at that point where, all wonderful things must come to an end. But this is more transition as we get ready now for the actual debates, the virtual part of the competition, as well as the face-to-face, which thankfully has returned after a 2-year hiatus. And just to finish off with a lot of what Dr. Wallace said, what's right with Jamaica? What's right with Jamaica is far greater than what not right with Jamaica. And I think I'm going to use the word wrong, because the word sound power, What is right with Jamaica is great, and let's focus on that. And they try to tell you to keep reading, and I'm trying to pick up that habit again. And there's a book I'm reading now called The Outlier by Malcolm Gladwell. I don't know if any of you have read it, but I don't know what took me so long. I should have read this book 20 years ago. I don't think it was written then. Whenever it came out, I should have read it. And just to say that a lot of what we do, a lot of the people we see as geniuses, people that have changed the world, a lot of circumstances had to be just right. For them to put in the 10,000 hours to get a mastery, yes. And the circumstances that we have to create, like Dr. Wallace said, is that we have to be our brothers and sisters' keeper. Because today for me, tomorrow for you. And so now, ladies and gentlemen, having been a part of this, again, it's a distinguished pleasure to have participated. And it's my pleasure now to invite my brother to come to the podium to give the vote of thanks, Nevin J. Nish.
Thank you, Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Brian Brown. But it will not be remiss of me to say Bobo Skiwa. And Sir Adrian, big up yourself. Monroe, rah, rah, rah. Our sphere of influence, as Dr. Wallace would have shared, we spread it over Cornwall College and over the Mannings High and elsewhere. So, thank you. But our children, of course, have grown up. And I heard Michelle Tolo speaking that, this little competition, but after 12 years, it has grown. And I'm sure that when you started out, you would have stood up and said, who will stand with me? Who will go with me? And I'm so happy, right, that you created this vehicle which is a creative incubator, which allows young people to think, to stimulate their minds, to get involved in one of the largest, the largest economic earner for Jamaica. And if not the largest, one of the largest in the world as foreign earners. And I'm so happy and I'm proud of the team to have put this together. And I want to give you a round of applause and say thank you. You see, the education system in Jamaica, it teaches us a lot about recall and conditioning, and so to see things of this nature which encourages holistic learning, thinking outside the box, alignment, which Dr. Wallace opened our minds, getting involved, taking us on a journey, to make sure that we go for the top jobs. We speak positivity. We change the mind, we trick the mind in thinking a different way, that we could move forward. I want to say thank you, Dr. Wallace, for your message. It was well received. And of course, I'll go home to my daughter who wants to be a psychologist. and share that, listen, this is, you're right. This is the way to go. So thank you again. I want to put your hands together for Dr. Wallace. To our sponsors, the Tourism Enhancement Fund, CGM Gallagher, Parcel Post, JHDA, thank you, Madam Nadine. The Choca Caribbean, Origin Juices, Tony Ward Transportation, Camco Manufacturing, Hotel and Supplies, Pier 1 Restaurant and Bar, Margaritaville Group, Intelligent Limited, Starbucks Jamaica, Royalton Resorts, Mrs. Quayler, costly. The Jamaica Observer, Fontana Pharmacy, Moon Palace Jamaica, Iberia Star Resorts, PBCJ Jamaica, or other media groups, stakeholders, schools in the competition, I want you to give yourselves all a round of applause. I am so looking forward to the competition. I'm so looking forward to the growth of this competition. I'm so looking forward to the many things, to many fixes, to many suggestions the youth can even make to the Ministry of Tourism, to some changes, some first world thinking, that we can employ to help make this tourism product much greater. And I want to say thank you so much to the Montego Bay Convention Center, the staff from the security at the gate to the very top for allowing us this room, and of course for always putting together an excellent hosting place for us to be here. So thank you again, Montego Bay Convention Center. Please give them a round of applause. To Kedesia Lauder, who played her part, the Miss Public Speaker, I don't see her anymore. And just to everybody, Mr. Ora 11, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for the support that you continuously give. Thank you so much once again, everybody. And we are just so looking forward to this and to make sure that this competition is a success and that it will grow from strength to strength and ensure that, again, we continue to bring that message of peace, hope, love, growth. And one other final thing that Dr. Wallace would have touched on, with collaboration, he recognized that the ethnic groups, something that I've always been saying, even real estate as a realtor, we find that a lot of these ethnic groups are coming together, buying things, buying up properties, putting together things. But what is wrong with us as Jamaicans? Why are we not doing it? Why? I'm there advising all these international clients, German, Spanish, coming to buy all the real estate. What happened to us? Why are we not collaborating and doing it? Remember that real estate is a primary source of all material wealth. So from it comes everything. So I want us to challenge ourselves to get in our groups and start doing it right. Thank you so much.
I think I can safely say that this has been anything but the run-of-the-mill media launch. I've never been to one like this, and I look forward to more like this. This has been a worthwhile endeavor, and let me now take the opportunity while we close to tell you all the high schools that will be participating this year. Calabar, Immaculate, Glenmuir, Cornwall College, Holland, Belair High, the returning defending champion. I saw that photograph. Big up to Belair. Charlemont, Wolmer's Girls, Edwin Allen, Jamaica College, York Castle, the Carteret College, Wolmer's Boys, and girls are there. Okay, so there is a 1/8 chance that a Wolmer's school will. Manning's High, Kingston. Manning's High, Kingston College, and St. George's College. Give it up for all 16 schools, ladies and gentlemen. So let the debates begin. All of you are winners already for just showing up. 16 best in the country. There are many, many high schools in this country. 50% of winning is just showing up. So we look forward to learning and being inspired. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful and productive rest of your day.